She doesn't even go here.
I'm bi, actually.
Excuse me. Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Hi, I'm Kurt Hummel, and I'll be auditioning for the role of kicker.
Hey.
Welcome to Not So Straight Nerds. I'm Alicia,
And I am Luke.
and today we're gonna talk movies. Way different than the other episode.
Yep.
Mainly one movie, a little bit about another.
But first things first, vibe check. Alicia, how are the vibes?
I think they're good. We just filmed our first episode. We're filming the first two back to back, just to start out. So I don't know. I feel like my brain is flowing more than it was the first episode. So I feel good, and I'm excited for what we're talking about. I feel like we broke it down a little better. Last episode we kind of just yapped, because we had a lot to talk about, which we have a lot to talk about this week. But we're gonna break
It's a
it
lot
down
more
into
focused
chunks.
this episode.
Yes, exactly.
So,
yeah.
hopefully the
Yeah.
flow will be better. And I ummed again.
Yeah.
Audience, I need you to make fun of my ums and uhs.
It's okay.
I'm trying to break that habit.
We're working on it. That's
We
one of
filmed
the
the first
reasons we got
episode.
this.
And after it ended, I was like, man, I feel like I didn't do that a lot. And
We
then she
need
played like
a
4
water
clips
gun.
and was jumping through. And without fail, every 4 cuts was me saying
and,
or
And he said, we need a water gun for me. And
Yep.
I agree. I think maybe we need to go buy one.
But we will improve, or rather I will improve. And I'm hoping to eventually break that
Okay.
habit.
Yeah, it's
Because
okay.
it is a bad habit. So just involves me thinking
It's a common habit.
quicker about how to connect my thoughts.
It's hard to break a habit like that,
Sure.
like,
And
on your first try.
it's repetition,
So,
and it's
yeah.
our first go, so
Yeah.
we'll go. That's my vibe check.
You need like a
That's
rubber
what I'm-
band, and every time you say it, click.
I might,
click,
honestly,
click.
I might.
Maybe we should get like not a water gun because we have a lot
We
of
do have a lot of
electronics.
technology.
But maybe like a little like air puffer, like just or I have this game called Poetry for Neanderthals, I think is what it is. I need to get the
The
little like
inflatable
bat
bat.
out, the inflatable bat.
That's a good one. But
Yeah, which doesn't make sense if you've never played that game, but you should play that game. It's kind of fun, and it's pretty easy to understand what you're doing in that game. So yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. But before we get into some of our planned topics today, we have some breaking news.
It's the first movie we're going to talk about.
But there has recently, in just the past couple of hours, released the Rotten Tomato critic score for the 2025 Snow White movie.
Which don't tell me yet. So I don't know. He does know because
I
he
do
saw
know.
it on Twitter and I didn't yet. He just saw it after we filmed the first episode. So I don't know yet. We're doing a live reveal of what it is to get my reaction. But I wanted to do some research on what the critic scores were and audience scores. We don't have audience for Snow White yet, obviously. It hasn't come out yet. But I have the critic scores for the past live adaptation movies. So I'm going to list through them. It'll help us kind of figure out. Snow White's hard because up until maybe a week and a half ago, everyone hated this movie.
Sure.
I didn't. I was excited for the movie. But I was very much in the minority of that.
I've been open-minded to
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
some of the trailers have not looked the strongest.
Yeah.
And
And
I
think
would say
that's
most
valid.
of them.
I don't know. I really thought a lot of people have problems with the CGI doors and think they look silly. I don't mind. It's a fantasy movie. It's Snow White. It's princess. I have that vibe and that thought process going in. And after the whole situation, it is what it is. That's what we're getting. And I think there have been worse alternatives of them, I think, basically excluding the dwarves. So at least we have the dwarves, and I've heard that they're cute. A lot of people, when they actually watched it recently and came out with their thoughts, I haven't seen anybody that hated it. So I don't know. Obviously the
But
Evil
I'm
Queen.
sure we will find those people soon.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's gonna be more nuanced and more mixed once general audiences can see it. But I don't know. Early reactions have been good, and there's a barking dog
We do have
outside.
barking
It's
dog.
not mine, so sorry. Anyways, I have a very peaceful cat, so
Well.
Well, peaceful is quiet cat mostly. But
but that list, if you will.
yeah. So, I excluded some of them. I really only included the ones that I felt like at least somewhat followed the original storyline it was based off. Like, I didn't include Maleficent because I feel like it's just so different. It's focused on Maleficent rather than Snow White. Or not Snow White. I'm saying that because you said that
I
earlier.
did say
You're
that
messing
earlier.
me up. Aurora.
I always get those two names mixed up.
It's okay. So I did Alice in Wonderland was one of the first ones I found. 50% critic score. Oh, I didn't do the second Alice in Wonderland. That's okay. There wasn't really one that's.
But there wasn't a. I don't think there was a Disney animated version.
Not
of
that
it.
I know of, at least. And I wouldn't have known if it was, similar to the live action.
Yeah.
Cinderella was 84. Jungle Book was 94.
Love the Jungle Book.
Beauty and the Beast 71. Lady and the Tramp 67. Aladdin 57. Mulan 71. The Lion King 51. Pinocchio 27. Peter Pan and Wendy 65. The Little Mermaid 67. And Dumbo 46. I was a little out of order with a couple of those, but those are the ones we had on my list. So I feel like most of them are not great. Let me count how many are above 70. We have 2 71s, and then we have only 2 others that are above that. We have an 84 and a 94.
And
Every
that was Cinderella
other
and
one.
Jungle Book, right?
Yeah.
And those are pretty early on.
Beauty and the Beast and Mulan were the other 2 highest, which I'm surprised
Mulan
about
is
Mulan.
surprising.
But I haven't seen that one. But I'm surprised because I didn't hear great feedback
We should
from
watch
that.
that one, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. But everything else was pretty bad. I honestly thought they were going to be better because sometimes the industry is a little scared of Disney. So
What was Little Mermaid?
Little Mermaid was 67, so it was close. I think it deserved. I mean, audience was much higher. It was 94 for that one.
That was surprising to me, actually, because I remember there was a
a
whole
lot of controversy
movement
and
against
complaint.
it
Yeah.
for various, I would say, unfair reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Racist
and
reasons.
I honestly
so.
loved that movie
I loved it too. I
So-
think that's one of the better ones for sure.
for sure, and it's. I don't
So
know.
I'm
I
way
think
closer to that audience score than critic score.
I think it's because one of the biggest obvious issues from the people who were looking to have problems with it was the casting.
yeah.
But I think that
and
there's
same
something.
with Snow White as
yes,
well.
but I think there's
Yeah.
something to be said about not casting someone who looks right out of the original and still trying to tell the story because you're not relying on like that same visual connection to be like, oh, I'm looking at a redhead mermaid with purple seashells,
Right.
so I'm looking at Ariel. You have to
Yeah.
put in the work to build up that character like kind of on your own.
Yeah, and I think she did that really well.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But we're not here to
so-
talk about
No,
Little
no.
Mermaid right now.
But that's because we did this because I wanna try to guess. I know you were surprised. I do know that, but that could go either way.
It could go well, yeah.
Okay, but that's hard because before this
So-
week you would have been surprised if it
Okay,
was good.
I'll ask you this:
Okay.
where among these your expectation for the movie?
I
Kind of
think
where
it's
would you
gonna
put it
be-
in, like in between the quality of these films?
I think it's gonna be the next one that's 70 or above.
Okay.
And there's only 4 that are 70 and above. So I think it's going to be because people were saying they liked it just as much as The Little Mermaid. So I would say like 65 to 70. Anything higher than that, great. And I think audience score, I'm hoping it will be higher. I still don't think it's going to be as high as The Little Mermaid because I am surprised with all that controversy was high as it was, even though I personally agree with it. But I still don't think Snow White, just because of Gal Gadot, like, still so many, like, that's what everyone's saying is, like, she's still pretty rough. Like, I've seen a couple people that are, like, she fits, whatever. But she's not a huge part. I don't know, maybe in the live action, maybe she's bigger, but, so I still think that's a big, rough part. And I don't think The Little Mermaid really had that, this guy's rough, or this girl's rough, like, moment. I guess people didn't like Scuttle, but that's a more minor character than the Evil Queen, I feel like. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna say that it's above 70. Is that good enough, or do you want me to like pick a number?
I'm gonna say no because that's not correct.
It's not correct,
It is
but I don't know
not.
which way to go. So
It is not above 70.
It's not. Okay. Oof.
I'll give you 3 other guesses to get closer. Or
Okay.
not 3, 2 other guesses. Well, you have 3 chances.
3 chances. Is it 60? Is that closer?
It is closer, but it is incorrect.
Is it lower or higher?
It is higher.
Okay, good. I was actually hoping it would be
Oh,
closer.
no. I mean, 60 was higher than the actual number.
Dang. Oh, man.
My bad.
That's a shame. And that's surprising considering the overwhelming... I haven't seen one negative review. So that is surprising. 47.
And that's your final one?
Sure.
You're one off. It is at a 48%
Okay.
Rotten Tomato critic score from 87 reviews.
Wow.
So
That's surprising to me. That is one of the lower ones.
So
That's
is pretty...
actually the third lowest from this list. There's a 27 for Pinocchio, 46 for Dumbo.
Interesting.
Every other one, there's Alice in Wonderland's 50 would be the next one.
So
every other one. Wow,
Um,
that's really low for all the positive reviews I've heard.
mhm.
But I mean, critics on this list have been very, very hit or miss. Honestly, yeah, they've been very hit or miss overall on this list. So honestly, I don't really rely on them anyways, but especially with the live actions after looking at this list, I would not rely on them.
Sure.
I don't think so.
I think critic score is most beneficial in determining how like Hollywood executives typically are going to feel about it.
Right.
Like for like award season.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's more what you're looking at when you're looking at that number.
Yeah.
Audience is more audience Rotten Tomato score I think is more how the general fan base around these kinds of movies feel about it. And then cinema score I think is like
I'm excited
almost
to see the cinema score.
unarguable the best on determining how a general mainstream audience feels about a movie.
Yeah.
Because it's spot polling. There's no way you can intentionally bias that for externally.
Yeah. So I'm excited to
But
see this. Cinema
I think I have a couple reviews I'd like to throw out there to hear from
Okay.
the people who have watched it.
score. Okay.
Um,
Can I read some of them too?
Absolutely, we'll trade off. So, on the Rotten Tomatoes, we have Tara Brady from the Irish Times, a top critic.
Okay, top critic.
Let me see. Oh my god, I don't want to look at the whole thing. So,
Yeah, no spoilers.
the most
For a
distracting
review that's
flaws
already
are
out.
rooted in the problematic recreation of animated material. The permanent magic hour lighting is hard to look at. Worst of all, the decision to cartoonize the dwarves alongside human actors is largely, I'm going to guess she probably says problematic. Which I do think that's going to be, I think that's typically probably the harder thing because of the, what is it called? The idea, not the Hidden Valley, that's Ranch. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where like something looks human, but like you know it isn't. Oh my gosh.
And you're talking about a condiment?
No, not a condiment.
Like
It's
ranch?
like a,
How did ranch get in this conversation?
Thing.
We're gonna pause
looks
until he figures out the word he's
human.
looking for. They're clearly not human.
I
Like,
mean, and they're
that's why
dwarves.
I liked it because they looked so fantasy-like. They weren't going for like a caricature of little people, which is good. We don't want them to make fun of that community. But they're not, erasing their story because they're such a big part of the anime. You can't, I don't know. You either do the adaptation and you include them, or you don't.
Yeah.
You don't do the adaptation, period.
And then she also she rated that a 3 out of 5 Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, and that's rotten.
That's rotten.
Oh yeah, because it isn't.
Because it's one or the other. They
Yeah.
can't pick, which I think is. I feel like
That's
there should
shame.
probably
But
be
that's not
something
a bad
in the middle.
rating. Looking at the rating part.
I mean
Maybe
that
rotten,
that
but
is
it's
about a
3 out of
48%.
Yeah.
So that's we're there anyway. And
So it's like
here I'll let you pick
solid,
one to read as
watchable.
well.
Okay. Dang. I like the one where it's this one's a positive one though, so I'll read a positive one. It's not quite fairest of them all, but hardly a poisonous apple either. That's what I feel, and that's a 3 out of 5 too, and that's positive.
So it's interesting.
So that is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Like
kind
this
that
one-
reminds me of how critics on Rotten Tomato were about Captain America: Brave New World, Because there would be people who are saying, this is a standard Marvel movie. It's not anything
Rotten,
super great, but it is a watchable movie. Rotten Tomato.
Rotten
And it's
Tomato.
like,
but you said it was
are
watchable.
you sure that you
That
put
is
the
the
right score in?
problem with it being one or the other. Is there's no room for nuance. There's no room for middle ground, and that seems what they're saying for this movie.
Yeah, and people are talking. I think that's also a little rich in an environment where people are talking about how streaming has killed the mid-range movie.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, critics.
I don't know.
Maybe make
can't
there
be-
be a mid option on your ratings.
Yeah.
Because
And
you're not, as the people trying to speak up for the smaller movies in Hollywood, make mid-level movies okay.
Maybe you just need to make like, well, I don't know. I don't know what the solution to that would be. I think the solution for now is just not taking them too seriously.
Be chill.
Which I think a lot of people already figured out. So.
But, and then another thing I wanted to throw in is that today, not Marvel, Disney has also released some fun little posters for Lilo and Stitch.
Okay. I've not seen them.
And I think these are very fun. They're very much in the style of the original. They had a very similar campaign for the original animated movie.
Okay.
So you can swipe through these.
Which is good. That's what people
4
wanted.
photos.
I mean, that movie's gonna make $1 billion. Who cares if it's good or bad? It's gonna make $1 billion.
So
Okay, so we have the first one. Nobody wished for this. He's eating Stitch, of course. He's gonna be the star.
He's
the show,
eating Stitch?
obviously. He's eating. Yeah, sure. He's eating his tail. He's eating his ear. He's eating the lamp. The genie
the
lamp.
magic lamp from Aladdin.
And then, I guess this is Beauty and the Beast. Who invited this guest? Yeah. It's like broken glass, and he has a rose in his mouth. That's very cute. All of these are oh, this one's cute. This one's my favorite so far. And this one's the Cinderella one, if the shoe fits, with the glass slipper. That's very cute. Oh, poison apple. He's eating the poison apple. It's kind of funny because there's a bite out of this, and he's biting the other side.
Didn't kill him. Didn't put him to sleep the first time.
No, I guess not. Of course it wouldn't. He's an alien.
Yeah.
He's just built different. And then it says not just another bad apple.
Yeah.
That's
So-
cute. Those are all cute. And
Yeah.
I'm glad they're going down that route. They're
Because
seem like they're doing it well
with
overall.
the original one, I remember on some of my DVDs from back in the day, I remember seeing commercials where it was like scenes from Disney animated movies, Walt Disney classics. I can vividly remember one for Beauty and the Beast, where it's the ballroom scene, and it's like sweeping, and then it like cuts up to the ceiling, and then Stitch starts crawling across the ceiling, and then he breaks the chandelier, and then Belle is like, go get your own movie.
Oh, she's like, get out.
And then
I don't have to
and
be
then
a
it's
nice
like
little princess.
Stitch is
in
getting
this
his own movie, Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah.
And then they also had one for it was Aladdin, and it was the magic carpet ride, and then Stitch pulls up in his red spaceship, and then Jasmine gets in his spaceship, and Aladdin's like, man, go get your own movie. And then also there was a Lion King one where he accidentally lifts up Stitch instead of oh my god, why can't Simba.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh,
that's funny.
Go get your own movie.
Get your own movie.
Which is so funny, and I think it's really cool to see them marketing that here in a very similar fashion. It's not the movies, but it's definitely the same heart.
Yeah.
Where it's like this troublesome character that is just so
Posters
deeply ingrained in the overall Disney brand.
Yes. I mean, there's discussions every day about how much merch he has in the parks. It's ridiculous. He has like he's like half of the stores there. So, but there's a reason for that. I mean, people are tired of it, but they're never going to stop doing that if people keep buying it and people keep buying it. So,
yeah, and I think I'm more and more becoming convinced that Lilo and Stitch could be $1 billion movie. I don't think I thought that a month ago, but now I think that so far the 2025 perception of movies has been really low, and I think that
people
already
need a Lilo and Stitch, honestly.
I think people are really looking forward to this movie. So
I do wonder if Snow White is going to affect that at all.
I do know they're putting out that new trailer in front of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think they're trying to capitalize and maybe even distract a little bit.
Yeah, like
hey,
this one is coming out, but here's Stitch. Here's Lilo and Stitch.
Cute.
Which it does help that the feedback seems to not be so like universally negative. It's
Yes.
now like middle ground. I think you have to. There's no argument whether you agree with it or not. It's now middle ground. It's not unanimously bad now.
Yes.
So I think that will lessen the damage if there is any damage. So
I agree.
yeah. I'm still excited. I've been in the minority of like really looking forward to the Snow White movie. Obviously, like everybody else, not excited for Gal Gadot. I've already heard the clip of her song and it sounds so bad. I really hope it sounds better in the movie. Don't think it will, but I'm excited for everything else.
I'm prepared to find the good parts of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. And like you're not really supposed to like the evil queen either, so could be worse. She could be Snow White, and that would be awful.
That would be awful.
So it could be worse. So
yeah, we'll find out this weekend. So,
yeah. Anyways, that's just our brief discussion on that. We'll do a whole video on just Snow White at a later time. So we gotta get into Novocaine. Okay. You can still die, dude. You can still die.
So we have recently watched the Jack Quaid starring film Novocaine.
Yeah. I love Jack Quaid.
Jack Quaid, most popularized from The Boys.
Yeah.
He's great on that show.
He was just in Companion.
He was just in Companion. We have his poster up on the wall for those who aren't seeing our
It's
video.
such a great poster. I love it.
I love the poster. And he does...
So satisfying to look at.
He does what he does in that movie. I think Jack Quaid over the time has been falling into the same kinds of roles.
Yeah.
And it's either Huey from The Boys or it's the guy from
It's just
Scream.
the same. Yeah, he's it's very like one or the other. And I don't know. I'm not hugely bothered by that. I do think he's capable of more, but I'm not bothered by it. He does well at what he does.
He does what he does, and he does it well.
And if The Rock can do it, he can do it.
No kidding.
No
kidding.
kidding. We need to get him into a live action now.
But boom, 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 boom. So
Or
for those who
animated.
don't know, because this is a slightly less mainstream movie, but it was the biggest movie of this weekend as we're currently filming it.
Yes.
It is advertised as a dark comedy and action, and IMDb labels a whole genre one-person army action.
Okay.
Which I think is funny, which I think is in the span of like John Wick, and those other one-man takes on the world type
Probably.
of projects.
Yeah.
So I think
That's
that's
interesting.
really fun that it's in that same vein.
Mm-hmm.
And the overall summary of it, for those who have not heard or paid much attention to it, when the girl of his dreams is kidnapped, a man incapable of feeling physical pain turns his rare condition into an unexpected advantage in a fight to rescue her.
As in, he's on a liquid diet because if he has solid foods, he could potentially bite his own tongue off and he wouldn't feel it. As in, he has tennis balls at the edges of tables because he can run into it and hurt himself and
not even
feel
notice
anything.
and just keep walking
Gets-
until he passes out and dies.
Yeah.
And
So,
I was very surprised at how clinical it was taken in the
Yeah.
movie. It definitely was played off, and I think the trailers as like a little fun fact about himself.
Right,
but the
right.
movie,
It was
especially in the
pretty
beginning, takes it
serious in
really
the movie.
seriously.
yeah, and I appreciated that. It was a nice surprise.
It's a very. I think they didn't
Oh.
have to pull it off as realistic as they did, but they really
No.
made a point to make it a problem.
Realistically. And I want to touch on that. One thing before I touch on something that I read about that. He also has to set, which I thought was really interesting. He also has to set. He has a watch, and he has to set an alarm every 3 hours to go to the bathroom because he can't feel that either if he has to go to the bathroom. So I thought that was interesting. I wonder how that works for sorry, this is gonna be TMI. I wonder how that works if you like have Taco Bell and you have like other kind of
Yeah, the other
issues.
side.
Yeah, the other side.
Does he have a separate alarm set for that? we
I
saw?
don't know. Maybe it's like Taco Bell. But, well, I mean, he's on a liquid diet, so I guess maybe he doesn't have to worry about that
Maybe.
much. Maybe that's the solution.
Oh.
But I like to read the fun facts, the trivia part of the IMDb page for certain movies. And I did for this movie because I knew we were going to talk about it. And it said that previously they had a lot of the hits he was going to take. It was going to be to the head. But then they were kind of talking and they said, we want this to actually be somewhat realistic. I mean, it's still a movie, but we want it to be like, if you can't feel pain but you could still die, how much can he like physically take. They probably like talked to a doctor and like medical professionals and said, you know, how much could he take before he like, you know, would
Before
actually
this
die.
starts becoming a cartoon.
And so they said they moved a lot of the hits to the head to just like the body, like the stomach or whatever. So, because you know you could take a lot more to the stomach than the head, so you get a concussion otherwise. So, that's interesting.
Real quick before we start kind of breaking into it, going more into spoiler territory.
Yeah.
As of right now, we are still non-spoiler. We will warn you whenever we do start breaking into it that we will start spoiling the specifics.
Yeah.
But Alicia, what do you think are some of the pro parts of this movie that you would recommend?
Jack Quaid, obviously. I loved him in this movie. I mean, that's the thing. Like, yeah, he plays very similar characters so far, but he is, at least from my perspective, from starting his career with the boys, he's still very early in his career. From my perspective, I don't know. I'd have to look at his list to see if that's right or wrong. So that's okay. And I really like what he does so far. So, you know, if he gets 10 movies down the line and he's still doing the same thing, maybe I'll have a complaint then. But I don't. It works for this movie really well. They said they had him specifically in mind, like from the very early stages, that they wanted him to play the first part because they watched him in The Boys. So, I mean, that makes sense that they casted someone with that same personality, that he was going to do the same thing. So, obviously, he was the highlight. I think. I did like the action. I think it had a couple moments where it would definitely, like, turn your stomach a little bit, or you'd have to look away. But that's to be expected. I mean, you see that in the trailer.
I mean, that's essentially the whole point.
Exactly.
It's just, like, challenging the audience.
But I like that they don't shy away from that. They don't cut during those hard scenes.
It almost has kind of like a Deadpool vibe in that sense.
Yeah, like it's not going to hold back. It's going to have violence, and you're going to see the violence. And I mean, I think that's something
and you're going to feel it more than he does.
Yes, absolutely.
Where's that tagline? That should have been a tagline.
Yeah, actually, that would have been a good one. But yeah, that's something good to know when going into the movie. If you're squeamish, get your fast forward button ready. Don't watch this while streaming. But if you like that and you don't like when movies shy away, then you will probably like this movie. And I think it's overall a very positive movie. We have things we want to talk about, critiques, but I liked it. It was a solid movie.
Especially, I think, in a year where so far the movies have been pretty...
Yeah, we
not where
fun.
At least we expected it.
Yeah.
This movie surprisingly stood out to us.
I think it was better than I expected. Yeah. Not like great, but I had somewhat low expectations going in. I thought this was going to be one of those movies where it was kind of stupid. I mean, at times, but like it was like in a fun way where it was entertaining. Like I didn't really care the stupid parts because I was having a good time. So, and I liked I mean, this is kind of one of my critiques, but at the same time, I like it. I liked the romance part of it. I really like, which you know this from the trailer, that there's this girl he likes that walks into his bank that he works at. And I guess this is slight spoilers, but I'm not going to go too much into it. But you kind of know a little bit from the trailer that they're going to be a couple. You know from the trailer she gets kidnapped in this bank robbery as like the hostage, and he goes after her. That's what starts the action.
And that's the whole call to action.
Yes, but before that, when they have like a date, I thought that whole scene was so cute. I mean, we'll get more into the specifics. There's like this thing that she does to a guy that Novocaine knows that I think is really cool. But that was a highlight for me too.
Yeah, that whole romance was really strong, and I honestly think it's like they didn't have to go that hard, but they did that for us. But like they definitely have some elements there that didn't need to be in this movie.
Yeah.
But I think really
I'm glad it
made it more than it could have been.
Yeah.
And I think it really makes it stand out, especially among a bunch of like mid-level action movies. It does some things that it didn't need to that make it really unique and stand out more.
Yeah. And can I just point out our special guest if you're watching on video?
Yeah,
this is Roxy.
We have a cat right here in front of us.
Yeah.
I don't think you can see her on the camera. If you can,
maybe you can't. Probably not. She's like right there though. We'll point to her.
Yeah, I think you're cut off right after our knees, but
it's okay. You may see her tail every now and then. You may hear like a clink of a collar. I don't know. She's very vocal sometimes when she chooses
When she
to
wants to
be.
be.
Yeah, when she wants to be. So you may hear like a little like chirp or meow every now and then. It's very cute.
Um,
Anyways, I'll
so
move on.
are there any cons you would say you had of the movie?
So it's hard to talk about cons without talking about spoilers. But I'll try to be vague with some stuff. Oh, but this is a spoiler too. I was gonna talk about the
I was like,
main
keep it vague
bank
and then we'll go
robber.
more into details later.
Yeah, but okay. I'll give it very vague. The main bank robber is an actor that I would want more from, and I don't think he gave what I wanted him to give.
I completely agree.
And I don't really know if that's like a combination of the script and him, or if it's
It
more
is
the script
interesting
and
to
more
think
him.
about where it lies.
Yeah,
Because you can be a
who
good
was
actor and maybe like
responsible?
misinterpret a role, and
Yeah.
like maybe you have a different idea than the director does, and so it doesn't mesh
Mhm.
well.
Right.
I'd be interested
was-
to kind of look at intent and like
Yeah.
maybe what it looked like on paper.
Yeah.
But I
And
think
I'll talk more about that later when we can say his name in
Yeah.
the spoiler section. But he was really good in another movie, and then he looks really good in the trailer for this other movie that just came out that I really want to see. So it surprised me that I didn't like him as much as I thought I would.
Mhm.
And then I do feel like, well, again, we'll get more into this in the spoiler section, but I do feel like as much as I liked the romance, it seemed to me like it wasn't built enough to lead him, Novocaine, to do the things he did for her.
Interesting.
It didn't, like, he kept acting like he was in love with this girl, which is why he was risking his life to go after them, and that didn't feel earned. It felt like obviously he liked him, and it was established that he was a good person, but to go to those lengths seemed a little bit like of a stretch, but I don't know. It's not a huge con, but it is there. It's in my mind.
And I will say I do actively disagree with that one.
I know, yeah.
I think,
Everyone
and we'll
else
talk
that-
about this in specifics, but I think that the
Yeah.
script does at least attempt to do the work to explain that. And I
Well-
think it's just either you buy it or you don't.
Yeah.
So, and we'll
Well,
go
and
into
all
details
three
later.
other people that watched it, including you, liked it and didn't have a problem with it. I'm the only one that had a problem with it, so I'm okay being.
You're a freak.
So I'm the problem. So no, I'm okay with being in the minority. I'm good at being honest, whether it's like, popular or not popular.
Sure.
Same as Snow White. I just said I really look forward to it. So
Some of the two strongest things I think are in this movie
Mm-hmm.
are, honestly, I think the main cast.
yeah,
I think
I
the
agree.
main cast is really solid.
mm-hmm.
I
Especially
for some
the
of
two leads.
yes, I
Jack
think
Quaid and
for
the
the
girl.
for the leads, I would really struggle to replace any of them.
Yeah.
I saw
And
someone. Good.
we see him in the trailer, so I can say this.
Yes.
What's his name? The
Oh,
guy
hold
from
on.
Spider-Man.
Jacob Batalon.
Yeah. Oh, he was great.
He was really funny in his role.
I don't know if I would say he was a main character. He was one of them.
Yeah, supporting.
He was in the
But
where the bank.
I think everyone really does a good job, and I think a lot
Mhm.
of the roles are pretty nuanced, and like I said, they go a little harder than I think they needed to for what I
Mhm.
think ultimately could have been a paycheck gig for some of these people. So
Yeah.
I think
That's
I really
very true.
appreciate a lot of the detail and work that they put into this one. And then honestly, I think the same about the writing. Like,
Yeah.
I think for the most of the script, the writing honestly surprised me with how much of a strong suit it was for this movie.
Mhm.
Considering it's just a basic action movie, your hero can't do pain, so you can do some
Right.
crazy things with that.
Right.
But I think the script elevates why he's doing what he does, and has a lot of heart to it.
Yeah.
And they
agree.
connected that to some of the other characters, and I think they did that in really sweet and really sincere ways.
You know what it feels
I
like.
did the thing again. Oh my god. Okay.
It's
continue.
okay. I've clocked it a few times, but it's okay. Maybe I'll let you know. Be like, really loud so you know you did. Oh, I just did it. Anyways, you're rubbing off on me. No.
My bad.
Anyways, I think what it is the trailers were giving
They were
streaming they were giving streaming movie, and the cast and the script cared more than that.
Yeah.
And which I appreciate.
Mhm.
I think they should care more than that for streaming movies, and I
Sure.
think we should have a better rep for
Electric
streaming movies. Yeah. Well, we haven't watched that one, so we can't really talk about it. But yeah, based on that critic score and that budget, oof.
Mhm.
Not even going to a single theater with that budget, wild.
Crazy.
We'll watch it and talk about that one later, but
But real quick, some cons I personally had for the movie are, like I said, we talked about that one actor in the heist that we both agree could have done a little more.
Yeah.
I think the overall premise, I can understand how audiences can see it as a little generic. I maybe would have tried to include some of the heart in the marketing campaign for it to show that it is more than just the basic action movie. It, by all means, it is definitely an action movie that you would expect kind of from it. But it definitely does its part to set itself apart from what you would think this movie would be. Exactly.
Because the biggest marketing part that I saw besides the trailers was they had, like, I think it was some game or some event that Jack Quaid went to, and he kept getting on the Jumbotron, and then every time he was shown, he had, like, another cast or another bruise, or I thought that was really clever.
That's really
But then
fun.
after seeing this movie, I'm like, I wish they would have also done something to show the heart rather than just, like, he's getting beat up in the movie. Like, we already knew that based off the trailer. And so they really pushed that side of the movie, and I wish they would have pushed the heart of the movie as well. Maybe, like, a trailer that was more romantic rather than action-based. I think
they could have done something like almost like a jokey rom-com trailer.
Yeah.
And then cut to all of these scenes where he's breaking himself.
Yes.
They could have done some interesting stuff there. And then I also, and we'll break into the more specifics of these, but the overall heist that sets off the movie, they do some weird things that I think make a heist, like, don't make sense for them.
Yeah, there's just certain things you don't do during a heist, and that has been established a long time ago. Like, since the beginning of movies, they've done heists. Like Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
I'm like...
It's just some basic stuff, man.
You just don't.
You never want your audience to make you think you can rob a bank better than your bad guys.
No.
But, and then, at some point in the movie, there is a crime scene. And these cops that are taken very seriously throughout the movie drop the ball in some really dumb ways.
Yeah.
That kind of make me at least lose my suspension of belief, because it's like, this could have taken 5 seconds to not happen, and now we have more movie happening because of this really basic thing that should have happened.
Or it could have been explained. I mean, obviously it needed to happen to continue the story, but then then
there's ways to, like, we'll get into the specifics of it. But I think that is going to call it for our non-spoiler. So warning, we are going to the spoilers for the movie Novocaine. If you want to watch that for yourself before you come and listen to us, definitely go watch that, or go ahead and skip.
It's good. It's worth the watch. It's worth the watch in the theater if you can handle it, if you can stomach it. Otherwise, definitely watch it on streaming services. Rent it whenever you can. I don't know what streaming service it's going to go to.
A cute date movie.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, if you can stomach it, that would be a good date movie, a good friends hangout movie, even family. Like, if they can all stomach my family couldn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is a friendship element to it, which I think was really nice.
Actually, a very good friendship. We'll talk about that. Very good friendship.
So, but yeah, you have been warned. Fools.
Spoilers.
So, first thing I kind of wanted to talk about was some of the big action sequences in this movie.
Yeah.
So, I broke them out into what I remembered being the 4 biggest ones. The first one being the initial gunfight that we have seen basically all but like 3 seconds of in the trailers.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, it's the initial one that he does whenever he first starts chasing after the bank.
He goes to that restaurant, the kitchen part.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about, right?
So
with the air fryer scene where he grabs the gun. We've seen it in the trailer. So
not air fryer.
Really, this isn't.
Oh, what is?
Not air fryer. Fry. Oh my gosh! It's like the frying oil, but I don't know what it's called. And I literally worked in one of those stations for like several months, so I should know this.
But everyone's seen the scene. We know what that is.
Yeah.
Or you've lived under a rock, and I didn't.
Well, if you haven't seen the trailer,
But I would say you should watch the trailer at least. If you watch the trailer,
most of the section.
If you watch the trailer. Know you can handle seeing the full context of those scenes.
Yes.
And expect a really good, a really surprisingly good love rom-com kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that will be a good indicator on if you'd want to watch this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
But, so, I hate that I can't remember what that is. I'm gonna talk. You look up what that thing is.
Oh, okay.
So, basically, he follows them into this kitchen. The people working in the kitchen are all ushered out, and it becomes a fist fight to grab the gun that he took from the officer, and he is Nate, played by Jack Quaid, and he's fighting one of the
A fryer? A deep
fryer. That's what it is. And one of the biggest things is that the gun falls into a deep fryer, and he has to reach in and grab it, and then he ultimately ends up immediately shooting the guy in the head.
Yeah.
So.
And then he throws up.
And rightfully so, I think.
Yeah.
I would think even just seeing my hand like that, like, I don't care if I don't feel that.
I'm surprised.
That is...
I'm surprised they didn't do more with that, where they were like, because I feel like your skin would like move at that point.
At what point does your skin just like melt?
Right. I thought it would.
But I wonder how it tasted.
Oof.
No, I don't.
No, you
well,
don't.
Anyways.
The Yellow Jackets would. But. That's a show about cannibalism, by the way.
There was the pan on the stove that he grabbed.
Yes, and the whole thing would be hot.
What a poorly designed pan.
Well, they're pretty popular. I have one of those. I have a small, it's like a skillet pan.
Yeah, I guess.
Where the whole thing, you can't touch any part of it. I mean, I have it because it's the size of like a skillet cookie if I ever wanted to make one. So you'd put it straight into the oven. So of course you'd never, but they were using it like on the stove, which I do feel like is impractical, but yeah, not, not popular. It's not unheard of. People would know what that is.
Sure.
But yeah, of course it was in the movie so he could grab it and not feel anything. The other guy grabbed it and felt pain.
That they kind of took every interesting part of that fight, at least the parts that revolve the fact that he can't feel pain, is all in the trailer.
Yeah.
But after that, we go to the tattoo shop. He's trying to find, there's a tattoo on that first person he kills. His friend tells him that the person who gave that tattoo works at this shop, and he goes to try and find out who the guy he killed was, who he works for, where he can find his girlfriend that got kidnapped.
Right, yeah.
And
he's trying to find out where he works, where he lives, any
what
other.
He can to try and find.
He doesn't even know his first or last name at this. He knows nothing but the face of this man.
So he goes into the tattoo parlor, and the guy who gives the tattoos is having a conversation because he shows him the tattoo, and he's like, "Oh, I think his name was Tim, or this guy."
Yeah.
And then he starts trying to read in. And is like, "Oh yeah, did you guys serve together?" "Yes, we did the military thing." And then he pulls what I think
hard working or whatever.
What I think is, I think it's clever. I understand why it didn't work, but I can see it being something I would have tried. Is hey, so crazy thing. Is it
Ben?
Yes, it is Ben.
Ben. He had a very generic last name, which is why something backfired for Novocaine.
But he was trying to say, oh, you might see the cat now. She's right here. She might try to bite me, so I'm not going to keep pointing at her.
She doesn't like men.
We can blame her.
She's a true feminist.
But it's along the lines of, hey, so his last name, not pronounced how you think it is. How do you think his name is pronounced? And then that's when the guy realizes he has no idea who this guy is, and then they start fighting.
Yeah.
Obviously, at some point, they threaten to, like, jab the tattoo gun into his eye, which would have been horrifying.
Oh my god!
I always hate the idea of something sharp going into the eye, especially slowly. Ugh.
Yeah, I love that later he also gets a threat when he's being like tortured in this one scene. In Ben's house, he finds Ben's address in the tattoo scene and goes there. Where he's being tortured, where he like puts up with a lot, but then the guy gets like a scalpel and says, "I'm gonna gouge your eyes out." And he's like, "No, actually, don't do that."
Eyes
he's
are
like,
his soft point.
Yeah, well,
it's
he
really
won't.
funny.
He won't feel it, but he needs his eyes.
Yeah,
obviously.
He needs the eyes.
So,
but and then another key point in that whole scene is that he gets thrown into a mirror. It breaks onto the ground, and then that's where you see him
like
doing the punching the floor. And then he literally does the Wolverine launch.
Yeah. And it's very slow mo. All the slow mo is like pretty long.
Yeah, they definitely draw it out, but I think that's because it's so honestly, I think it's a little funny. I think it works.
It was funny.
Pretty
it worked
well in the moment.
I agree.
It
didn't come off as cheesy to me.
I'm trying to remember. Was Jack Quaid ever one of those actors that people were either pushing or it was rumored that he would be Wolverine?
I don't know. I'll look that up. You keep talking.
Because low key,
tattoo stuff.
that fight scene kind of makes me.
That was
feel
his official campaign for Wolverine.
That almost is kind of what it looks like. Because some people take movies, and that's like what their like manager would like push towards some of these franchises that are looking for people.
Yeah,
to
there's
play
a few
main
articles
roles.
on it.
Interesting.
But then this other picture shows him as Beast.
Oh, I think I've heard that.
So
Interesting. Personally, I wouldn't cast him as Wolverine, but I can understand. But I feel like he might have seen some fan castings of that and been like, what's a way I could potentially make people think more about me in that role?
yeah, and there's a couple articles about him being Wolverine, so it's not
Interesting. Not out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then also one of the funniest things from this whole fight action scene is that he gets the address of the guy's house and he tattoos it to his hand because he's using his phone to call the person he looks up information on people for with his bank.
Yeah.
And then
I
he
will
just has that
say-
address tattooed on his hand the rest of the movie.
I really hated that scene, and then that backfires for him later, and I'm like, yeah, and that's why I hated that scene, which, of course, it was in the movie because it needed to backfire on him later. But I was just like, why would you put it on your hand? Why would you tattoo it? This is what I said. He should have tattooed it on the artist that he just attacked, and then taken a picture of it when he hung up the phone.
Yeah. Or like, oh, that is another thing we didn't mention. He has tattoos all over his body that he gave himself, which
I thought
another
that was
thing
really
that they
cool.
That was a really cool idea. That just as a kid who doesn't feel pain, he could just do that to himself and honestly not even recognize it as being this big deal. And then it just grows in the importance of it, especially as he feels super isolated. And literally, he has this castle covering himself, which I think is
He has like
symbolic
a
to how alone
story.
he feels.
Yeah.
And I think that was really clever.
I will say, did that come off to you initially that he tattooed himself or that he designed the tattoos? Because I think what I was trying to say is he just designed them and someone else did
No,
it.
he said he gave them to himself.
That just seems a little unrealistic to me because those were good tattoos.
Those were
like,
really
the
good
tattoo
tattoos.
artist even compliments him on those tattoos. That's how good they are.
Maybe a little unrealistic, but I like the idea of it. Cause
I would have been okay if it was just his designs, but I do think it's because there's certain parts of the body I'm like, even if you were a good artist, which I don't think that was established, maybe it was, just the fact that he created those art. But there are just certain parts of the body and certain muscles and like certain angles you wouldn't be able to get and it wouldn't be able to look good. But it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't. They looked pretty, so that's all I cared about really.
And the reveal, whenever he revealed it to his partner, I thought was really touching, and that led into a really beautiful scene between the two of them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think overall it added a lot to this movie. That was one of the things
agree.
where they didn't have to include that, but they did, and it really worked for me.
Yeah. Should we talk about I don't know where this is in your notes, but should we talk about their date, or is that later?
Let's finish the action scenes, and then I have kind of a character breakout, and we can talk about it in the first part. So then there's the trap house, which I think is one of the fun. I honestly think it's my favorite action sequence. It's not super actiony, but it's a whole section that highlights that he can't feel pain.
Yeah.
He basically walks through the house of the guy he's looking for. It's all booby trapped, so he keeps getting hit by things.
Yes.
But whereas the traps are obviously meant to ruin someone's day, it's just a minor inconvenience for him, which I think is played for some really funny jokes.
I agree. I think it's very funny.
And then he gets caught hanging by the ceiling, calls his online friend over, which
He's
is
a gamer.
Jacob Batalon.
Yes.
And I love
Such
their
a good
whole
character.
relation.
Yeah.
In that whole conversation of, hey man, I kind of have no one else. I don't know what our friendship online over this game was to you, but it was like everything to me.
Because he had no one else.
And you are kind of like I love the importance, especially as someone who is into gaming as well.
It's very touching.
It's really touching to highlight in-person friendships.
Yeah.
And that just because you
Almost
aren't
like
seeing
pen
this
pals,
person, it
but-
still doesn't make it not real.
I agree. I thought that was really cool. And they meet later, but the importance is already there.
And then also right after that scene, he gets captured and is tortured, but he's stalling for time, so he has to pretend to be hurt.
Yes, the
which is
friend's
also
on the
played
way.
really funny.
He's 10 minutes away. So he sets a timer on his watch, and he keeps looking as he gets tortured. And
he keeps
"I don't know if
looking
I'm
at the
gonna
clock
make
every
it."
time the guy's busy stabbing
Yeah.
him somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's like,
This totally hurts. Yeah.
Oh no, the pain. That's the worst
pain.
pain. And that whole scene is
unbearable.
really funny.
Very funny.
The last action sequence I have is the ambulance car chase at the very end of the movie, which happens after we had mentioned earlier there was a police scene, a crime scene that was just horribly done.
Yes.
It was after they shoot the main
two
antagonist.
detectives.
They shot the main
No, I'm
antagonist.
saying, yeah.
And then all of the people are there, and then the guy gets up, shoots both detectives that are there, and then basically runs away. And that is insane.
Yeah.
Because they shot him in the side, so it's not anything that would inherently kill him.
Yeah.
Even so, you have paramedics there on the scene dealing with Nate,
Yeah.
and they would be responsible for calling his time of death. If not, they would acknowledge, hey, this person should be in handcuffs.
Yeah.
And then there's, not a movie.
They would be helping him as well, and so somebody should have been with him.
Yes.
And there was no reason to believe that he was incapacitated, and yet they act like he is. They act like that's
and then
just,
it's a whole
of
thing,
course
and then
it
he
would
goes
be.
off, steals an ambulance with Nate inside, which leads to this whole fight sequence when it crashes, and then he ends up breaking Nate's arm open.
Ugh,
and
that's
then,
one of the gorier scenes.
Yeah.
Also in the torture scene, he
the fingernails get ripped off.
Yeah.
But he can't feel it.
Ooh, but I had to look away on that one. I'm gonna be fingernails and eyes are my weaknesses for gory stuff.
But as soon as he ripped his arm open and then the piece of his bone was sticking out, I just knew that he would end up killing him with that bone. Bone.
And he did.
He ended up uppercutting him Wolverine style, right through here.
Right there. It was pretty awesome too. I was like, okay.
Yeah, when action movie's gonna action movie, and that was mad.
Yeah. But
So, and that's most of the action. Some innovative stuff. Everyone who wasn't Nate was doing typical standard bad guy fighting. Yeah. Their part wasn't anything interesting. The whole premise of not feeling anything was the big takeaway from those action sequences.
Yeah.
At least the stuff that you haven't seen already was really interesting to watch in the theater.
Yeah, and I don't know, at least as far as I can remember, I don't remember anything being wildly unrealistic. I never had a moment where I rolled my eyes, I feel like. And there have definitely been movies.
Sure.
I appreciate the attempt at being realistic. I do think it's it is still a movie. But
it's suspension of disbelief.
And he is in a full body cast at the end of the movie. So it's not and he takes 6 months or a year to heal? I forgot what the time jump was.
I think it was a year later because it was their anniversary.
So then he looked fine a year later, which that's a long time. So, yeah.
Now I think I have it separated into talking about each of the cast members.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have to start with Mr. Quaid, who
Yeah.
plays Nate.
He's so charismatic.
He's
Oh
very
my
charismatic.
gosh.
I heard someone compare him to...
I heard Tom Hanks, maybe?
I've heard a comparison to Tom Hanks. I hate that I can't remember that name. I've seen someone compare him to, in his heyday, Jim Carrey.
Okay.
And I think I can see that comparison. Because some of his roles are pretty out there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I would think Novocaine. I
Yeah.
think I could potentially see a younger Jim Carrey in this role.
Yeah.
More than I could
Very fun.
think basic ones.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because this is a little bit more physical comedy with some of these action especially with these action sequences.
Yeah.
But I think that
really well at
there
that.
is an interesting element where I can't see Jim Carrey doing most of Jack Quaid's roles. Because I think Jack Quaid can play naive and sincere, which I don't affiliate with Jim Carrey's characters typically.
Mm-hmm.
They can be nice guys for sure, but I don't think they have the naive kind of heart of gold, because his characters are also super
maybe,
tacky every
Truman
time.
Show.
Maybe, but even he's very tacky and performing for the back of the audience. So
Unknowingly, yeah.
I think that I can see the comparison, but I think Jack Quaid definitely has some unique style.
Yeah, I feel like there's not a great comparison, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes him unique. Hopefully that doesn't limit him in the future. I would be really interested to see him expand into something we haven't seen him do before.
Yeah, maybe like a more serious role where he's not necessarily a bad guy, it's just more serious and like somber.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
that'd be
But
fun.
he does great. We've talked a lot about him already. Someone else I really wanted to talk about was Sherry, played by Amber Midthunder.
Yeah.
So she is the girlfriend who gets kidnapped in the movie. We find
I thought
out.
she was good.
I thought she was great.
Yeah.
And the whole opening is about him going on a date, her always making the first move. She's worked at his bank for about 4 months. Asks him on this date. He doesn't agree to go at first, but then he changes his mind.
Yeah.
And then they go and they have this awesome time as they kind of explain and understand each other. She's an artist. He relates to that with the tattoos that he makes on himself.
Right.
Whenever they get more personal, she ends up removing her shirt, and you can see some scars that she has on her stomach.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
liked that they both had physical representation of their like maybe more darker parts, and that they don't really talk about a lot. I liked that they physically showed each other those parts. I thought that was
I like that they
interesting.
show and they don't tell, and it doesn't need to be said.
Yeah,
About
'cause
how
you get it.
sincere that is.
And I think that's important for the twist that comes later.
Yes. Which I think we can go ahead and say, spoiler
Yeah,
alert, she was
spoilers.
in on the heist.
What?
Who would've
She's the
guessed?
The sister.
She
of
is the sister.
main-
That I didn't see.
Really?
The sister, no. I
Oh,
knew
you didn't
there was no
know
way
that
she
was gonna
wasn't
happen.
in
Okay.
on it, because
Right.
even in the actual heist scene, she like randomly sits up whenever the gun is pointed at Nate, and she's like, "No, don't do it," and like it's clearly played as like someone begging their boyfriend not to die. But
Yeah.
but when you know it, it's, oh, I'm in on this. I'm asking you, my brother, not to shoot this person I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And if you kind of know that going into, it's like, okay, cool. So I'm right about that.
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
I think that's important because also spoilers, they end up together. They stay together. He forgives her actually very quickly. I don't think there's ever even a scene where he's visibly mad at her. He's shocked.
He's very shocked to find out that he went through everything for someone who was in on it and wasn't even actually kidnapped.
Yeah, but I think all those sincere parts make the forgiveness more believable.
Yeah.
And the fact that she betrays her brother and puts her life on the line.
Saves his life.
It saves his life.
So-
All of those.
And then it ends with him putting on, in the middle of his tattoo, where there was this blank space the whole movie, it's a princess dragging a knight into her tower when there's a dragon attacking.
So they're
And
like
he's
saving
saying
each
that
other.
They're saving each other.
That was
which
so
I think is super cute.
Yeah.
And also she's in jail at the end because she did help do a robbery.
Yeah. So
and people
she's like
died,
in a
so
tower.
A lot of people died.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm surprised she only got like, well, I guess it was a year
was a
later.
year and then, I think
8 months
8
or
months, yeah.
7 months.
So
So she got
that's-
like a little less than 2 years.
What you gonna do? But
I'm a little surprised she got that much, but I mean, I guess she was an accomplice rather than like she didn't actually murder anyone, and
Sure.
she didn't really know that he was gonna murder anyone. She like got onto him being like, I mean, I'm sure she knows her brother because
What the heck?
it's established that he's done this before, and she's like, you always do this. So I'm sure she like had an idea, but she was still very disappointed and upset, and especially since she helped the cops and helped save the day in the end, I think that probably helped her as well.
another really key. So 2 other things to talk about on the date. They
Yeah.
went to get lunch, and
Cherry
she
pie.
has him eat cherry pie for, I guess, the first time in his
Solid
life.
food.
Because he
Solid
can't eat
food.
the solid food, and he's too scared to. And I think it's really
She
interesting to
basically
find.
forces him, which I thought was a little awkward, but
Well, he clearly was into it by the end of it.
yeah,
And I think it's
it
really
paid off.
interesting to see that she brought a confidence and like
Yeah.
literal a burst of flavor into his life. And I think
Yeah.
that scene is perfectly encapsulating that.
Mhm.
Literally viewing her as sweet as pie.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
later that night they go to a bar where she's selling her artwork. It sells. He's like, well, of course it sold. It's great. And then she kind of
That was
blocks
sweet.
that compliment off because,
Mhm.
as we learn later, she's not actually there for the right reason, but she
Yeah.
stays there the right reasons.
Mhm.
And then someone who knows him from middle school comes up to him at the
An
bar.
old bully. Who gave him the nickname of Novocaine, not really against his will. I mean, he embraces it very quickly,
Yeah.
but it initially was not something he liked.
Yeah.
And they made fun of the bladder thing where he has to set a timer so he doesn't, pee himself, but...
But long story short,
Yeah.
he comes back to the table, and she and the bully are talking, and she gets a shot for both Novocaine and the bully.
Yeah.
They take it. Turns out it's actually just like the hottest hot sauce to exist, and the bully basically
freaks out and
because
leaves.
he ends up leaving, and it's a whole thing that she's standing up for him, which
Because
I think is also
Novocaine,
pretty clear
it
that he's
doesn't
also
affect
not
him.
used to.
Yeah.
So I think her acting in the script does a great job about building that connection really fast and showing why it's so important to him to find that person and keep that person.
I think the potential was more of the reason rather than the actual deep relationship. I mean, it still was one of the deepest relationships, even only after one date that he's ever had. But just the potential of what it could be, I do think is very important.
Yeah. Then the main villain is Simon, played by Ray Nicholson. As we said earlier, we expected maybe a little more from him,
Yeah,
especially
that's the guy
after
we were
how
talking
great
about.
he was in
And
Smile 2.
I'm really looking forward to his performance in Borderline as well. That did not come to our theater, unfortunately. Not that surprised, especially with Samara Weaver as well. Amazing actress. Because he looks like he'll be great in that. He looks like he'll be his father from The Shining, which I'm very excited. If you didn't know, he's Jack Nicholson's son. Yeah, that's why I was so surprised that he really missed the mark for me in this movie. I was so excited when I saw his face in the movie.
The writing on his character felt way campier than anything else in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it was so generic compared to some people who had some really nuanced roles, both in their performance and in their writing.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone was there and felt like they were there for a paycheck, I think it was him.
Yeah. Because he's a psychopath, and that's why he makes rash, dumb decisions like killing people in a heist. And we'll
like
get
killing
to
the
that.
manager of the bank you're trying to rob,
Yeah.
and then killing a bunch of officers at the bank you just robbed. Which is
Uh,
going to make more people come after you
Yes.
harder.
And I understand that he's a psychopath, but...
But if you're doing this professionally,
we'll talk
then...
about the heist in a second. But with him, it's like... I'm a little bit worried with how he's going to do in Borderline, because he's also playing a psychopath in that movie, a psychopathic stalker. But he was really good in Smile too, so I don't know. I do think it's not totally on him, but I do think it is partially on him, which just surprises me.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
What you gonna do?
You can't win them all.
Yeah.
Hopefully Borderline will be good. The heist. You want to talk about the heist?
The heist scene itself, like I said, it's just a little messy in the ways I said. Like, he ends up killing the manager because he doesn't give him the code, and then he threatens Nate, who is the assistant manager for the place, and then threatens to shoot him. Sherry screams out, "Don't shoot him." And then whenever he turns the gun on Sherry, that's when he gives him the code.
Yeah.
Turns out that she went on that date to get the code from him. Can't
Don't
imagine
know.
how that would come up in a first date conversation in any way.
That's his justification for why he shot the manager, I think. Which I just think is such a bad... Like, how are you supposed to get that after one date? How does that come up? I was saying this earlier, that after, 20 years of marriage, why would you ever need to know that? So why, especially after one date? I mean, maybe...
Especially after she'd been there for 4 months. Like, why would you not have started that earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
And then also with the bank manager, it's really odd. Like, the alarm is tripped, the police are on their way early to their own plans.
Yeah.
So it seems weird that he's so insistent on not letting them get the money when they have a gun pointed at you and other people, and that's not what you do in that circumstance.
The money's insured. You're a bank. Like, why are you risking your employees and the guests' lives
Yeah, that was...
for money that's not yours and money that's insured? It's not like you're going to get fired. Your bosses are probably telling you your life is worth more than our insured money. Like, we'll get it back. Well, we're also likely going to catch the people. And so it's like...
you
that
tripped
was
the
really
alarm. That's why
silly.
we have it.
Mm-hmm. Everything
So
about
it's
that was very
all-
silly to me.
That whole part also felt very like, okay.
And then he goes outside with the hostage, which of course is his sister. So he's not actually going to shoot her, but they don't know that. And so it's like they're not going to shoot him unless they feel like they have a really good opportunity to, which they weren't going to. But then he just like doesn't even hesitate and shoots all of them. Just open
All of
fires.
the officers, every officer who shows up there gets shot and taken down. And then I guess they didn't have a getaway driver because there were only 2 cars and they were driven by 2 of the 3 people who were in there on the heist.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. That was silly. And then they didn't put them. In hindsight, it seems very funny that they put the bag with the money
Right
with the
next to her.
guy that was by himself rather than the one with the sister. It makes more sense if she was an actual hostage, but since she's not going to take the money potentially.
I don't know.
Yes. Why did
That
they?
is interesting.
I don't know.
On to another big strength of the movie is Jacob Batalon's character who
Oh my
plays
gosh.
Roscoe, the
I was
online gamer friend of
thinking-
Nate.
Yes.
You were thinking?
Well, I was thinking at some point, Loki, he could have been the role, or he could have been the lead of this movie, and I wouldn't have been mad about it.
Maybe.
I don't know, or at least he needs.
I feel like he would
needs a
completely change the
lead.
vibe of the movie.
Yeah, but he's just so funny and charismatic. Like it was like they were having a battle of charisma, which I enjoyed. Like it didn't seem too much. It seemed like they bounced off each other really well.
Yeah, he was really funny in this movie. I
Yeah.
think this is my favorite role that I've seen him in.
Which he's
I
always
think
been
he's good
funny
as
in the
Ned,
Spider-Man movies, of
but
course.
I think that this
but-
one really lets him shine, especially
Yeah.
I think as an adult.
Yeah, and as a friend, he's they write him as a better friend than in like they give him more to work with than in
Yes.
Spider-Man.
Because he doesn't have to put himself on the line for this person he's only played video games with, but then he does, and he keeps doing it even though he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But he does because they're good friends, and as
Yeah.
someone who has some online friends, I really I immediately think of my friends when I see that, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
That's cool.
I would do that for any of my online friends. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really sweet inclusion for them to have.
Yeah.
And then also side note, Tarot, that horror movie about tarot cards, he was in that.
Oh yeah.
Not great in it either. So
Dang.
I'm glad he got around on this.
He circled back.
Lower level
he said,
movie.
Here's where I am.
Some other notable highlights to put out are the 2 detectives in the movie, played by Betty Gabriel and Matt Walsh. Betty Gabriel, she was in Get Out. She was the maid and grandma in that scene.
Okay. I
And
kind
I
of
think
remember
she's
that.
great in that as well.
Mhm.
And she also does really good here. They have
Mm-hmm.
her best scene is easily whenever she is like, so he's a bank manager and they think he's robbing the bank? That feels really weird.
Yeah.
Do they have a number on file? And her partner's like, you really think he's just going to answer his phone after
And then he
robbing a
does.
bank?
That's
Hi, this
hilarious.
is Nate. And
Well-
then they have this really sweet conversation about, hey, you have to stop. I'm sorry. I think this is the love of my life.
Like,
If
do you
this
have
was-
anyone like that's like that for you? And she says, my daughter. And then that comes back around. Later when he's in the hospital in the full body cast, she gives him a card that's hand drawn and decorated by her daughter, which I thought was really sweet.
Yeah,
Very
that-
sweet callback.
That's another. She did a lot with that role.
Yeah.
That was not super
She
rounded
wasn't-
out.
yeah, she
but she
wasn't given
definitely
a
makes her
lot.
role hit hard when it needs to.
I agree.
And then Matt Walsh, which I know him best from Dancing with the Stars.
Okay.
He was on it one episode. He was the first person to go his season,
Mm-hmm.
which was. And then a lot of people
Sad.
immediately on Twitter afterwards were like, "This show is rigged. They don't want Matt Walsh on the show." But unfortunately, I think he doesn't have as much to kind of brag about as his partner does in that scene. But he still does
He's not
fine.
given as much. Yeah. He's
But-
not given one of those scenes like
Yeah.
she got, I will say.
But he's still a nice bouncing board off of her, and they have
Yeah.
some fun banter.
Yeah.
And then the last actor I really wanted to point out was the actor for Earl. His name is Lou Betty Earl Jr. He is an old man at the beginning that Nate helps out. He lost his wife, and his store.
That's
is
another
about
part
to
of the
get
heart
taken.
of this movie. Oh my gosh.
Yes, and
It's
it
so
really
good.
also reads into why he does what he does,
Yeah.
because Earl talks about how he lost his wife
Mm-hmm.
and about how he doesn't know what he's going to do without her.
He doesn't have the life insurance money yet, and then I think like some other policy he
Yeah, and
needs
then
money
Nate
for.
basically says, "Hey, the holidays are coming up. I'm going to put this at at the bottom of my stack, so I won't do anything with it until you get that check after the
Yeah.
holidays over.
Mhm.
Then you should be able to catch up." And then as he's expressing his how he can't even fathom what it would be like to lose someone after, I think it was like 50 years of marriage.
A lot.
And
yeah.
then Earl has the amazing and beautiful line, "It would have hurt just as much to lose her the day that I met her."
Yeah.
Which is
That was so good.
that is, it literally has me tearing up when I say that. It's
It's
just
so
such a
good.
genuine connection. And then that is followed by those awesome dates that he has with Sherry, and I think all of that together in the first couple 30 minutes really drives home the whole,
like, why he does what he does.
Yeah.
That's true. That line is built to be like, it would have hurt just as much to lose her the day I met her. Basically,
which is what the situation he finds himself
exactly. Yeah, that's true.
So.
I'm still not totally for it, but
yeah, you're still gonna be a hater.
Okay. I see it. I understand.
So this movie was directed by Dan Burke and Robert Olson. It looks like they are directing duo who have directed I found like 5 different movies they directed. This is the highest rated that they've had.
Okay,
they had one other that was nominated for an award at some film festival, but this is the definitely the most mainstream they've had.
Yeah.
And overall,
It's really cool.
I think that they could definitely make an argument for making another action movie.
I wouldn't mind if they were on a Marvel project. I'm going to be so honest.
You know
Let's
what
see
I think?
what they can do.
I think they could...
A smaller one, a less important one.
I think I would love to see what they could do. Hear me. The Punisher special feature.
Okay. Yeah,
I think that could be a nice little combo.
Has a lot of, like, gritty, like, gory action. And they've proven themselves.
That could be really interesting, actually.
Yeah, okay.
But definitely, I think for an innovative action movie,
and they have heart, which
can
is very important for his character.
I think they can do some great work with more action.
That would be really cool.
And I think if they can find something, maybe a more mainstream star to kind of go off of, or maybe a more mainstream franchise. I think I'd be really interested to see if they can get anything off of this.
Yeah.
And then their writer is Lars Jacobson. This is one of his first couple writing credits. I think it's like his 4th. Nothing else that we would have seen.
Overall it was good writing.
It was
good
really
script,
good writing,
good direction.
considering. So
I'm not mad about it.
And the rest of his writing credits are really low. So it's surprised that he came out of the blue with this.
Yeah.
So the general reception for this movie, IMDb gave it a 6.9 out of 10.
Yeah.
The critic score on Rotten Tomatoes 82. Audience score is 87. So this is a pretty well-received movie from the people who actually are able to go out and see it.
And I would agree with those ratings.
Yep. Metacritic has it at a 60. 58% are positive, 36% mixed, and then 6% are negative, which I think is pretty
valid.
Pretty good, especially for the type of movie that it is.
I agree.
And then its cinema score was a B.
That's a little low.
Is low. I've heard that for a non-horror movie, B plus is like the minimum you can have to be like a decently received movie from audience. So
I would have said B plus, or maybe even like maybe.
I would have said B plus as well.
Yeah, I don't think I would have.
I think B. I think if they had like another another person on the level of Ray Nicholson somewhere in there, it probably would have gone to a B. But I think a lot of people really pull their weight in this movie. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see, because cinema score is a pretty good idea for how long it will stay in the marketplace. So with that being said, it was number 1 this last weekend. Let me pull up what we are looking at. So it has, as of today, its domestic box office is at 10 million, 12 million worldwide. So the international market is not in love with this movie, which I can understand why. Budget I've actually not seen. It's not on the source that I usually use.
Okay.
But I can't imagine this being a super expensive movie.
IMDb, this article says a reported 18 million. Yeah.
I think it will eventually get there. I think especially by the time it hits digital.
I think so. I think I wouldn't say it would be a flop. Because you said it made, a worldwide 12 million?
Right now it's at 12 million.
Ooh,
12.5 million.
And domestic was 10 million?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's really low for international.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any parts of it that would particularly appeal to international audiences.
Yeah.
I think Jack Quaid is an American sweetheart right now.
I will say, they're probably going to have a big drop for Snow White, whether or not people like Snow White.
I would disagree. A lot. I think that they're very different. Like, if they were played next to each other, I think that they would draw different audiences.
Yeah. I don't know. But then, I feel like a lot of people would have seen it this weekend. Maybe not because of Mickey 17. I don't know. Because it's also spring break. So they have a lot of opportunity to see it this week. And next week are, I think, the biggest spring breaks for the nation. So yeah, it has more opportunity for people to see them during the week, which doesn't happen super often outside of summer. So yeah.
So what do you think this movie will do long run, like total worldwide, if you had to guess?
Oh gosh, I would be hoping for maybe this is optimistic, but I feel like if it doubles its production budget, like 36 million, something like that.
Yeah, I think around the early to mid 30s is probably about where I'd ballpark it.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's
hopefully it'll make its budget
optimistic,
back. I think that there's a lot to take from this movie, and I would want to definitely see in more movies going forward, especially in the action genre.
Yeah, I will say I have not seen a lot of discussion about it or response to it, at least online, and that surprises me a little bit.
Yeah. I think some people perceive this as a streaming movie, and honestly, I think maybe
that's a shame.
I agree, but I think like this writing team in a streaming, like in a Netflix deal, I think they could do some good stuff.
Mm-hmm. They could have an elevated streaming service movie. So
hopefully the right people are watching this movie to keep them moving with the momentum. But yeah, that is our thoughts on Novocaine.
Yeah. Well, have a great week. We're gonna talk about Snow White soon. We're gonna talk about the new Daredevil episode, White Lotus episode when they come out. And yeah. So until next time.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Yeah. Stay dirty.
Bye.